The wine glass trembled in my hand as his cruel laughter filled the room. But that wasn't the moment that changed everything. That moment came when I spoke my real name and watched a billionaire's world crumble in front of 20 witnesses. Let me tell you how it really happened. My name is Nora Sinclair, and until 6 months ago, I thought I was just another struggling artist. I worked part-time at the City Art Gallery, barely making rent on my tiny studio apartment. I painted at night and dreamed of having my work hanging in the same gallery where I spent my days watching rich people buy masterpieces. That's where I met Adrian Whitlock. He came in on a rainy Tuesday, looking at paintings like he actually understood them, not like most wealthy customers who just wanted something expensive for their walls. Adrian studied each piece, reading every description, asking thoughtful questions. When he stopped in front of my favorite painting, a small landscape by an unknown artist, I couldn't help myself. "That one's special," I said, walking over. To him, the artist painted it right after losing everything. You can see the hope fighting through the despair. Adrian turned to look at me and his smile was genuine. "You sound like you know the artist personally." I blushed. I paint too, just as a hobby. "I'd love to see your work sometime." That was the beginning of everything. For 3 months, we dated quietly. Adrian would pick me up after my gallery shifts, and we'd walk through the city talking about art, life, dreams. He was kind, funny, and treated me like I mattered. I knew he came from money. The Whitlock name was everywhere in our city, but he never made me feel small because of it. I should have known it was too good to be true. The night everything changed started when Adrian invited me to his family's annual charity dinner. "It's time you met my father," he said, holding my hands. "I want him to see the amazing woman I'm falling in love with." I was terrified but excited. "What do you wear to meet one of the richest men in the country?" I spent my entire paycheck on a simple black dress and borrowed my roommate's pearl necklace. I wanted to look perfect for Adrian. The Whitlock mansion was like stepping into a different world. Crystal chandeliers, marble floors, paintings worth more than I'd ever make in my lifetime. 20 guests in designer clothes, drinking wine that probably cost more than my monthly rent. And then I met Gregory Whitlock. He was tall like Adrian, but where Adrian's eyes were warm, his father's were cold as ice. He looked at me like I was something dirty that had wandered into his perfect world. "So this is the gallery girl Adrian's been hiding," he said, not bothering to shake my hand. How quaint. The way he said gallery girl made it sound like an insult. "It's wonderful to meet you, Mr. Whitlock," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Adrian speaks of you often." He looked me up and down slowly, making sure everyone at the dinner table was watching. "I'm sure he does." "Tell me, dear, what exactly do you do at the gallery? Polish the frames? Sweep the floors?" My cheeks burned. "Actually, I help curate exhibitions and work with artists too." "Oh, how impressive," Gregory interrupted with a fake smile. "Just a low-paid janitor who thinks too highly of himself." Several guests laughed behind their wine glasses. Adrian shifted uncomfortably beside me. "Dad, Nora has a real talent for talent." Gregory's voice got louder, more theatrical. "Adrian, son, let me tell you about talent. Talent is what builds empires. Talent is what creates jobs for thousands of people. Talent is what puts food on tables and roofs over heads."
He gestured dismissively at me. "This is not talent, this is a hobby."
A pretty little distraction for people who can't make it in the real world. The entire table was staring now. Some looked uncomfortable, others seemed to be enjoying the show. "Mr. Whitlock," I said quietly, "I don't think—" "Of course you don't think," he cut me off. "People like you don't think. You dream. You hope. You create pretty little pictures while the rest of us actually work for a living." My hands were shaking, but I tried to stay calm. "Art has value too. It inspires people. Gregory threw back his head and laughed. "Inspires people? Oh, my dear child. Do you know what inspires people? Success, money, power, the ability to provide for their families and build something lasting." He leaned forward, his voice turning cruel. "Tell me, How many families have you fed with your finger paintings? How many jobs have you created? How many lives have you actually improved? The room went deadly quiet. That's what I thought, Gregory continued. You see, everyone, this is exactly what I've been warning Adrian about. Pretty faces and artistic pretensions are fine for entertainment, but they're not suitable for serious relationships. Not for a Whitlock. I felt something snap inside me, not my heart. Something stronger, my dignity. You're absolutely right. Mr. Whitlock, I said, standing up slowly. Some people build empires, others just inherit them. His smile faltered slightly. Some people, I continued, my voice getting stronger, understand the difference between creating value and just taking credit for other people's work. Gregory's face started to turn red. Excuse me? You heard me perfectly well, Mr. Whitlock. Your hearing isn't the problem here. Your memory is. Adrian grabbed my arm. Nora, maybe we should. No, I said, pulling free. Your father wanted to discuss talent and value. Let's discuss them. I looked around the table at all those wealthy faces staring at me in shock. Mr. Whitlock, you've spent the last 10 minutes trying to humiliate me in front of your guests. You've called me a janitor, mocked my career, and dismissed everything I care about as worthless. Gregory was standing now too, towering over me. How dare you speak to me like that in my own home? The same way you spoke to me in your own home, I replied. The difference is I actually have a reason. The wine glass in my hand was trembling. I set it down carefully before I dropped it. You want to talk about building empires? Let me ask you something, Mr. Whitlock. How exactly did you get your start in business? Remind everyone here how the great Gregory Whitlock built his fortune. Something in my voice made him pause. I thought that was a long time ago, 2 years ago, I said clearly. A man named James Sinclair took a chance on a nobody contractor with big dreams and no money. He gave you your first major project. Your first real opportunity, your first taste of real success. The room was so quiet you could hear people breathing. James Sinclair didn't just give you work, I continued. He mentored you, taught you the business, introduced you to every important person you know. He believed in you when no one else would. Gregory was backing away from me now, his face pale. How do you know about? Because James Sinclair was my grandfather. The silence that followed was deafening. That's impossible, someone whispered. Is it? I asked, reaching into my purse. James Sinclair had a daughter named Margaret. Margaret Sinclair married Robert Chun and moved across the country to start a new life. She wanted her children to succeed on their own merit, not their grandfather's name. I pulled out a folded document. Margaret Sinclair Chun was my mother, which makes me James Sinclair's granddaughter. And according to his will, which was never fully executed, I have certain rights that no one knew about. Gregory dropped into his chair like his legs wouldn't hold him. What kind of rights? He whispered. The kind that give me control over. The James Sinclair Trust. The trust that still owns 38% of Whitlock Industries. The trust that has been managed by lawyers for 15 years while they searched for any living Sinclair heirs. I unfolded the document. Last month, those lawyers found me. Gregory's hands were shaking as he reached for the paper. This says ... says you have voting control ... over 38% of your company. Yes. The paper rattled in his trembling fingers. What do you want? I want you to remember something, Mr. Whitlock. Every building you've constructed, every deal you've made, every dollar in your bank account started with my grandfather's faith in you. He saw potential in a young contractor and gave him a chance to build something meaningful. I picked up my purse and headed for the door. But more importantly, I want you to remember this moment. The moment you realize that the gallery girl you just humiliated holds your entire future in her hands. Adrian was staring at me like he'd never seen me before. Nora, wait, please, I didn't know. Know what? I asked. That I was somebody important? That I had money and power hidden away. Because that shouldn't matter, Adrian. Tears were running down his face. It doesn't matter. I love you for who you are. Then why didn't you defend who I am? Why did you sit there while your father tore apart everything I care about? Why didn't you stand up for the woman you claim to love? He couldn't answer because we both knew the truth. Gregory found his voice again. What do you want? Money? I can transfer funds right now. I laughed, but there was no joy in it. You still don't understand, do you? I don't want your money, Mr. Whitlock. I want something much more valuable. What? I want you to apologize. To me, in front of everyone here. For every cruel word you said tonight. His face went purple. I will not. Fine, I said. Then I guess tomorrow morning I'll be calling an emergency board meeting to discuss new leadership for Whitlock Industries. The silence stretched on forever. Finally, Gregory Whitlock, one of the most powerful men in the city, looked at me and said, I apologize. For what, specifically? He closed his eyes. For insulting your work, for mocking your dreams, for treating you like you don't matter, and for disrespecting the granddaughter of the man who gave me everything I have. I nodded. Thank you. Then I walked out of that mansion, leaving behind the boy who wouldn't fight for me and the man who learned too late that kindness builds more than cruelty ever could. But the story doesn't end there. The next morning, I woke up to find my phone buzzing with calls from reporters, lawyers, and board members. Word had leaked somehow. Gallery worker inherits control of major corporation was trending on social media by noon. My quiet life as an unknown artist was over. But something else had begun. 3 days later, I sat in the Whitlock Industries boardroom, wearing a new dress I'd bought with my own money. Not inherited money. My own savings, because I still believed in earning what I had. Gregory Whitlock looked older, smaller than he had at his dinner party. The other board members were studying their papers, afraid to make eye contact. Good morning, I said, taking my seat at the conference table. Miss Sinclair, Gregory said carefully. Thank you for coming. It's my company too now, Mr. Whitlock. Of course I'm here. I'd spent 3 days learning everything about Whitlock Industries, the profitable parts and the ugly parts. There were more ugly parts than I'd expected. I've reviewed your business practices, I announced, and I have serious concerns. Gregory shifted uncomfortably. What kind of concerns? The kind where you've been cutting corners on materials to increase profits. The kind where you've been underpaying workers while giving yourselves massive bonuses. The kind where you've forgotten that this company was built on my grandfather's principle of treating people fairly. The room was dead silent. So here's what's going to change, I continued. We're going to improve working conditions for all employees. We're going to use quality materials that will last. We're going to create an arts education program for workers' families. And we're going to do it all while maintaining profitability. Impossible, Gregory said. The numbers don't work. I smiled. They do if executive compensation is brought down to reasonable levels. They do if we focus on long-term value instead of short-term greed. You can't just change everything, another board member protested. Actually, I can. I have controlling interest now, remember? I stood and walked to the window overlooking the city. Somewhere down there, people were living and working in buildings my grandfather had helped create. People who deserved better. My grandfather didn't invest in you so you could get rich, Mr. Whitlock, I said without turning around.
He invested
In you so you could build something that mattered. Something that helped communities grow. Business has changed, Gregory said weakly. People haven't changed, I replied, facing the room again. They still deserve fair wages. Safe working environments. Companies that care about more than just profit margins. I gathered my papers. I'm not here to destroy this company. I'm here to save it from greed, from cruelty. From people who forgot that success means lifting others up, not tearing them down. As I headed for the door, Gregory called out, Miss Sinclair, yes? Your grandfather really would be proud of you. I paused. Mr. Whitlock? Yes? He already was. That's why he made sure I'd have the power to fix what you broke. But my story was far from over. The real surprises were just beginning. 2 weeks after taking control of the company, I hired a private investigator to dig deeper into Gregory's business practices. What he found made my blood boil. Gregory Whitlock wasn't just cruel at dinner parties. He was systematically destroying lives. I found records of him deliberately targeting small art galleries, music venues, and community centers that stood in the way of his luxury developments. He would buy the buildings through shell companies, triple the rent overnight, and force creative businesses to close. Then he'd tear everything down to build expensive condos that regular people couldn't afford. Dozens of artists had lost their studios. Musicians had nowhere to perform. Community centers where kids took art classes had been demolished. My own gallery was next on his list. He'd been planning to shut us down for months. The worst part? He did it all while pretending to be a patron of the arts. He'd donate money to museums with great fanfare while secretly destroying the places where real artists actually worked and lived. 6 months later, I discovered something that shocked me even more than inheriting control of the company. "These documents show a pattern," I said, walking into his office unannounced with a thick folder. 23 properties in 3 years. All bought through fake companies. All housing artists, musicians, or community programs.
He looked up from his desk and I could see the panic in his eyes. Good. He should be scared.
"Miss Sinclair, what can I do for you?" I dropped the folder on his mahogany desk with a loud thud. "You can explain why you've been waging war against every creative person in this city." His face went white as he opened the folder and saw the evidence I'd gathered. "These are just business decisions." "Business decisions?" I laughed bitterly. "You put a 90-year-old violin maker out of business. You destroyed a community center where 300 kids took free art classes. You demolished a theater that had been running for 60 years. Gregory was sweating now. "Real estate development is exactly what my grandfather helped you start," I interrupted. "But he believed in building communities, not destroying and for profit." I walked around his desk and stood behind his chair, making him turn to face me. "But here's what makes this really interesting, Mr. Whitlock. Every single property you destroyed, every artist you put out of business, they all have something in common." Gregory's hands were trembling as he looked through the documents. "They were all recommended to you by your son Adrian." His face went gray. That's not possible." "Oh, but it is." I pulled out another folder. "Adrian has been feeding you information about every art space in the city. He knew which galleries were struggling, which studios couldn't afford rent increases, which venues were barely breaking even." Gregory's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. "Your precious son has been helping you destroy the very community he claimed to love. The community where he met me." The old man looked like he might have a heart attack. Adrian Would. He could and he did. For 3 years, every time we went to an art show, every time we visited a gallery, every time we supported local artists, Adrian was taking notes, making lists, reporting back to Daddy about which places would be easy targets. I sat down across from his desk, watching him process this betrayal. "Now here's what's going to happen," I said, my voice deadly calm. "You're going to sell every single property back to its original owners for exactly what you paid, not market value. Your original purchase price. That's millions in losses. Consider it tuition for 30 years of forgetting who you used to be." Gregory was shaking now. "The board will never approve. The board doesn't get a vote. I have controlling interest, remember?" I stood up and headed for the door, then paused. "Oh, and Mr. Whitlock, you might want to have a conversation with your son about loyalty. Because the next folder I'm building is all about Adrian's role in your little art-destroying scheme." The door slammed behind me, leaving Gregory alone with the evidence of his cruelty. But that wasn't the end of his surprises. The really devastating news was still coming. 2 days later, my phone rang at 2 in the morning. It was Adrian, and he sounded completely panicked. "Nora, you need to know something about my father. Something terrible." I sat up in bed, instantly awake. "What now?" "He's been stealing from the company pension fund for years. Millions of dollars that belongs to retired workers." My heart stopped. How do you know this? I found the records hidden in his home office. Bank transfers, forged documents, fake accounting entries. He's been moving money for at least 5 years. This was worse than destroying art galleries. This was stealing from people who had worked their entire lives, people who trusted the company with their retirement savings. Adrian, where are you right now? Outside his house. I broke in to look for evidence about the art gallery thing, but I found this instead. Nora, he's stolen over $12 million. My blood ran cold. $12 million from workers who had built this company with their hands and sweat. Meet me at the office in 1 hour. Bring everything you found. Nora. I'm sorry. For everything, for feeding him information about art galleries. 4. Not standing up to him at dinner. For being a coward when you needed me most. I closed my eyes. Even Adrian had betrayed me. We'll deal with that later. Right now, we need to focus on protecting those workers. The next morning, Adrian and I sat in the boardroom with piles of evidence spread across the table. Bank records, transferred documents, forged signatures. Years of theft from people who had worked their entire lives for Whitlock Industries.
He stole from his own workers, Adrian said, his voice full of disgust. People who trusted him.
People who built this company with their hands. I thought about my grandfather, how he had believed in treating workers fairly. How he would feel knowing his investment had been used to steal from the very people he wanted to protect. We have to turn him in, I said. He's my father.
And?
These are innocent people whose retirement money he stole. What kind of man does that make him? Adrian nodded slowly. What kind of man does that make me if I protect him? The decision was hard, but it was right. That afternoon, FBI agents arrested Gregory Whitlock in his office. The charges included embezzlement, fraud, and theft of pension funds. The local news cameras caught him being led away in handcuffs. I felt no satisfaction watching it.
Only
sadness for the man my grandfather had tried to help become better. At the emergency board meeting the next day, I was elected as the new CEO of Whitlock Industries. The youngest CEO in the company's history, and the first woman. My first act was to restore every stolen penny to the pension fund, plus interest. My second was to create an arts foundation that would provide free studio space to artists who couldn't afford rent. My third was to rename the company. From now on, I announced to the board, we'll be known as Sinclair Industries. It's time to honor the man who started all this. 6 months later, I was standing in my new office, looking out at the city my grandfather had helped build. The phone rang. Miss Sinclair, there's a man here to see you. Says his name is Gregory Whitlock. I paused. Send him up. Gregory looked older, thinner. Prison had not been kind to him, but his eyes were different.
Clearer somehow. Hello, Nora, Mr. Whitlock.
I came to apologize, really apologize, not because I want anything from you. Because I owe you the truth. I gestured to a chair. I'm listening. Your grandfather was the best man I ever knew, he said quietly. He gave me everything, and I spent 30 years forgetting what that meant. I became the opposite of everything he taught me. Gregory's voice cracked. When I mocked you at that dinner, when I called your work worthless, I was really talking about myself. I had become worthless. I had forgotten that money without. Honor is just paper. I watched this broken man, and I felt something unexpected, not pity, understanding. Why are you telling me this? Because you saved me, he said. Losing everything, going to prison, facing what I had become. It woke me up. For the first time in decades, I remembered who I used to be before I let greed poison everything. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, wrapped package. This was your grandfather's. I should have given it to you years ago. Inside the package was a simple gold locket. When I opened it, there was a picture of a young woman who looked exactly like me. That's your grandmother, Gregory said. James carried that picture every day we worked together. He used to say she reminded him why he worked so hard. Not for money, for love. Tears filled my eyes. James always said the most important thing you can build isn't a business or a building. It's character. He tried to teach me that. I wish I had listened sooner. Gregory stood up slowly. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. I just wanted you to know that your grandfather's lessons didn't die with him. They live in you.
After he left, I sat alone in my office, holding the locket.
My grandfather's face smiled at me from the portrait on my desk. That night I called Adrian. "How are you doing?" I asked. "Better," he said. "I'm seeing a therapist. Trying to figure out how to be the man I should have been all along." "That's good. Nora, do you think we could ever ... I looked at the locket in my hand. "I don't know, Adrian. But I know my grandfather believed in second chances. Maybe someday. That's enough for me." A year later, Sinclair Industries was thriving. We had opened 5 new art centers, created hundreds of jobs, and restored trust with our workers. The company my grandfather had helped start was finally living up to his values. I still paint. My studio is on the top floor of our headquarters now, where I can look out at the city and remember why beauty matters in a world that often forgets. Adrian and I are dating again, slowly, carefully.
He's a different man now, stronger, braver, the kind of man who stands up for what's right even when it's hard, especially when it's hard.
My black dress still hangs in my closet, but I don't need it anymore to remember who I am. I am Nora Sinclair, granddaughter of James Sinclair, CEO of Sinclair Industries. But more than that, I am a woman who learned that real power doesn't come from tearing people down. It comes from building them up. The girl Gregory Whitlock mocked at his dinner table changed more than just her own life that night. She changed his too. And sometimes, that's how real revenge works. Not by destroying your enemies, but by becoming so strong that their opinions can never hurt you again. My name is Nora Sinclair, and I'm exactly who I was meant to be.